Hey, welcome back. Mr. Jorgens here. Today we're going to be going over section 3.3 on function notation again. We're going to be dealing with how to graph functions, and I'm calling this 3.3 part 2. Big part of today is going to be learning how to set up a table so that we can graph a set of coordinate points. Make sure you pay attention as there will be a few questions for you along the way. Alright, looking at our first example today, graph f of x equals 2x plus 5. And we're going to look at a number of different ways to graph functions throughout the next couple weeks. But the first one is going to be something that you've probably seen before, which is graphing with a table. And so we're going to set up our table, and then we're going to go through and graph the function after that. So in the book, they kind of set it up with some x values given for you. So the x values given for you here are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And what they want you to do is find the corresponding y values for each of those x's. And once you do that, you'll be ready to graph the function. So really what these problems come down to is being able to do a bunch of input and output problems. And what I mean by that is we're going to start with the x of -2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to input -2 in for x and solve it out for my y, or my f of x. So in order to do that, I'm going to say that when x is -2, I'd have 2 times -2 plus 5. And again, I'm always going to do my multiplication first, then my addition. So 2 multiplied -2 makes -4. And then -4 plus 5, -4 plus 5 is going to make a +1 because I have more positives than negatives. So when I input -2, it's going to output 1. So that means my y value, or my f of x value, at the input value of x equals -2 is going to be 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to do that for each of my x values. So if I do it again, this time I'm going to do it for -1. And I'm going to input this time my -1 for x. So when I do that, I have f of -1 equals 2 times -1 plus 5. And if I go ahead and work that out, 2 multiplied -1 is going to make a -2. And -2 plus 5 is going to make a +3. So my output value for an input of x equals -1 is going to be 3. So my coordinate point here is going to be -1, 3. Alright, I'm going to do it again for 0. So in this case, f of 0, oops, do it in black. So f of 0, where 0 is kind of my input value, is going to be equal to 2 times 0, where 0 again is my input value, plus 5. 2 times 0 makes 0, and 0 plus 5 makes 5, so my output value is going to be 5. Alright, go ahead and try that for this next one, x equals 1. So find the output value when x equals 1 and enter your answer when you're ready. Alright, let's take a look at that one. If I input a 1, I kind of erased my old work so you can see it down there below. 2 times 1 plus 5. So then that's 2 plus 5, which is 7. So my output value would be 7 for an input of x equals 1. Go ahead and try that again, this time for an x value of 2. So this time for an x value of 2, kind of underline it in pink there, input the 2 for x and solve it out for y. Enter your answer when you have that output value. And if I input 2 here for x, I get 2 times 2, which is 4, and 4 plus 5, which makes 9, so hopefully you picked 9 as my output value there. Again, on all these problems, I'm going to have to start by setting up my table, which boils down to a bunch of inputting and outputting problems like I did yesterday, so hopefully we're proficient at those. Now that I have my table, I'm going to go ahead and plot the points on my graph on the next screen. Alright, now looking at my table, I'm going to go ahead and plot them on my graph. So -2 and 1 is my first kind of point value here, right? So -2 and 1 means an x value of -2, so 2 to the left, and then a y value of 1, so up 1. And again, it can kind of be helpful to think of my f of x as like my y here. It's my output value, and y is kind of another kind of term for that. So I got -2 and 1 on there. And then looking at my next kind of value here, I have -1 and 3. So that would be 1 to the left and 3 up. Should be right there. You should notice that my points are going to end up making a straight line. Next one is 0 and 5. So 0 spaces left to right and 5 spaces up. And then my next value is going to be 1 and 7. So 1 to the right and 7 up. And then my final value, 2 and 9, 2 spaces to the right and 9 up. And those points kind of end up making a straight line, so we're going to be able to connect our values here with a straight line, as we're going to do throughout the chapters here. And that line would be a graph representing our original equation, which our original equation was y, or equals 2x plus 5, or since we're doing function notation, f of x equals 2x plus 5. All right, let's go ahead and try a second example, -3x plus 1. So again, I'm going to pick a couple of the input values, and I'll let you try the other ones. In this case, I'm going to start with -1. So if I have an input value of -1 here, and I plug it in for x, just a reminder of how to do that. We're going to have f of -1 equals, then it's going to be -3 times -1 plus 1. -3 times -1 is a +3. And 3 plus 1 makes 4. So when I inputted a -1 here into my input value, it's going to output a 4 as my output value. Then the other one I'm going to try is +2. So I'm going to plug in +2 for you. When I do that, I get f of 2 equals -3 times 2 plus 1. Again, I'm inputting my 2 in for x in both spots there. When I work that out, I'm going to multiply first. So -3 times 2 makes -6. And -6 plus 1 makes a -5. So there's 2 of my values there. I'm going to let you guys work on the other ones. So on the other ones, let's start with -2. So go ahead and plug in an input of -2 and enter your answer when you find that output value. All right, so taking a look at that one, I plugged in -2 for my x value. -3 times -2 makes a +6, plus 1 makes 7. So my output value at that x value of -2 is going to be a +7. The next one I want you to try is x equals 0. So try with x equals 0 and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so taking a look at that one, we have x value of 0. So -3 times 0 makes 0, plus 1 makes 1. So my output value when x equals 0 is going to be +1. Last one for you to try is an x value of +1. So go ahead and input an x value of +1 and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so taking a look at that one, -3 multiplied by 1 is going to make -3, plus 1 is -2. So my output value when x is +1 is going to be -2. Now that we have our table, we can go ahead and construct our graph by plotting the points, and I'll do that on the next screen. So in constructing this graph, my first point is at -2 and 7. So I'm going to go 2 to the left and up 7. My next point is at -1 and 4, so 1 to the left and 4 up. My third point is at 0 and 1, so 0 to the left and right, 1 up. Fourth point at 1 and -2, so 1 to the right and 2 down. Again, we've been practicing plotting points on Desmos. Hopefully you're able to do that. 2 and 5 will be 2 to the right and 5 down. So again, if you know how to plot points, graphing lines, at least in this first part where we're just plotting points, shouldn't feel too hard. We draw a straight line through the points. And that's pretty much a recap of section 3.2. So 3.2 is all about inputting and outputting with functions. Again, once we know how to input x's and find the outputs y's, we can draw graphs by making a table. You're now ready to try the big ideas problems on section 3.3. We'll start with 3.4 tomorrow.